This is Mami-Sexual reporting for duty.
The logical progression from this point is basically taking Homura, pulling her down and going, all right, you idiot, you went too far. But
Who's going to be the one to do that?
That's the thing, because in my head, there are three candidates. And the three candidates are Mami, Madoka, and Sayaka. At the end of Rebellion, Homura does wipe Sayaka's memory so she won't be a threat. She will continue to be aware that Homura is an evil presence. That is literally how strong Sayaka is by the end of it. Even though, she hasn't got anything special. She is just a standard magical girl who, honestly, didn't do a great job the first time around.
Yeah.
Her hatred for Homura is so strong that it survives her mind being wiped. Sayaka is so strong-willed, and the other is that Madoka is so close to breaking back out.
That's true too. We actually did see toward the end of the third movie that despite what was going on, you could still tell that some part of Madoka was trying to, So I guess there's a possibility that maybe over time that desire could get stronger. But then again, and again this is going back to the concept share a little bit. But what I liked at the beginning is that you kind of see Madoka doing the whole ballerina thing. You have Homer Watts up in the background. Like, the impression that I kind of got from that was that she continued to try to manipulate her to her liking. So I kind of feel like the version of Madoka that we see is kind of a little bit more, like, far gone from what we saw at the end of the movie.
Basically, the way I see it, I think they even say it in the concept trailer, Homer is keeping Madoka like a bird in a cage.
Yes.
There's a lovely quote, I'm going to steal it, which came from, I don't know, Zero, where why do people keep birds in cages? Because they are so very beautiful. That's essentially what Homer is doing now. She's determined to keep Madoka, but you're trying to put literally God into a very small box. That lid won't fly back off. I think if you make a fourth movie, the entire build-up is going to be probably Yubei or Sayaka or someone, them going around and slowly trying to convince everyone to create a resistance to go up against Homura. And the conclusion of this would be Madoka waking back up.
Okay.
Destiny, and because she's the only who actually has the power to do this, to literally, confront Homura and fight her on equal terms, essentially.
Okay.
And I don't see Madoka as someone who would get angry necessarily, because that's just not who she is. But I think she would be the one to say to Homura, "This isn't what you wanted. I know what you were trying to go for, but you've gone about it the wrong way," basically, is probably the direction it would go, I think.
The number one thing that I really want to see happen in the next movie, more so than anything else, is I want to see Madoka become like some type of personification of her witch counterpart. Now, I have a video, and probably by the time this video goes up, I will have released some more about the idea of Madoka transcending to a version of her where she's kind of taking like a darker path. I feel like this is something that is being hinted at, mostly from the trailer, but I also think that this would be good for Madoka's character, because I mentioned before that with all the girls, you essentially are able to see like different sides of them. Like you could essentially say you see the good sides of these characters, and you also see the ugly sides of these characters. So essentially all the girls in this series are presented as gray, in my opinion. And I feel like Madoka is the one character who we have never seen an ugly side of, in my personal opinion. Like, I feel like she's always I don't know what the right word for it is, but essentially she has always been portrayed as being, like a really good-natured person, which again, I know that this is a part of who she is, and I get it, but I still feel like that, because again, with the Madoka series, it really goes out of its way to show that all the characters have some aspects to them that are considered flaws, and maybe that are not necessarily so positive. And I don't feel like with Madoka we really, in my opinion, I don't feel like we really get that. And I feel like because of what was presented in the concept trailer, and I feel like for the sake of because in my opinion, if they're going to continue the series, it makes sense that that they need to touch upon something that they haven't already like done, because otherwise, like they could potentially rehash like too much of what we've already seen. Like, for example, we've seen a whole movie that is mostly fixated on Homer, and and essentially we know how she feels. So I feel like this next movie really should not focus too much on her and her feelings, because we essentially know how she feels about everything. And I feel like Madoka is a character we really didn't get a chance to see a lot of how she felt about what had taken place with what Homura did. So in my opinion, this really needs to be a movie that we get to really like dig into like Madoka's head and really get a chance to see how she feels about everything. Because from my perspective, there are two ways that Madoka could look at everything that's been going on. Now, there's a part of her that is completely okay with the fact that she became, like a concept, the fact she became a god. I do feel like that there is a possibility that that a conflict could occur within Madoka, because it was presented, in the third movie, that a version of Madoka was not necessarily happy with the role that, or she didn't want to take this path, but she felt like she was forced to. I kind of feel like that since you have essentially two sides of her, one who essentially made this decision to be where she is, but potentially, I kind of feel like the third movie sort of flirted with this idea that maybe there was a possibility that at least a part of Madoka may not have necessarily been happy. So I kind of feel like that this could create room for a conflict. Like maybe there's a part of Madoka that's not happy with what she's done, and then maybe there's a part that isn't. At the same time, you also have the issue of what Homura has done, because Homura has essentially done so many things to Madoka because of the fact that she's constantly gone back in time, and Madoka has been changing and has kind of been molded and altered in all kind of different ways. So I kind of feel like that could play a role. What I'm trying to say is that I feel like this is really a movie that Madoka really needs to be the center focus. And I feel like that one way that like one thing that they could do is to show us like a different side of her, like maybe a side of her that's just not about being good natured. And like I feel like I want them to kind of dig a little bit more into her, and I want to see her develop as being more of like a more great character. Like I want to see more of her, and again, I feel like in the third movie she was kind of treated as more of an object than an actual character in terms of how she was like dealt with overall. So again, I personally would like to see her change in this up and coming movie. I would say that's the number one thing I want to see happen if they decide to continue. Um I want the movie to start off with the girls, going about their daily lives, and I slowly wanted to transition to Madoka being conflicted with everything that has kind of happened and being unsure of what to do, and I want her to kind of dance on that idea of her, changing. So I want that to happen where she's concerned. And I also want this to be a movie where Homura has to kind of atone for the actions that she took. Because I mentioned before that if Madoka changes, part of the reason why it would have happened will have been because of all the action that Homura has taken from the very beginning. Like the reason that they're even in this position in the first place is because of what Homura did, despite the fact that she in some ways she had some good intentions. But I feel like if Madoka were to change, this would be a great opportunity for Homer to really kind of look at herself and be able to think, man, I really fucked up. It's like I really because of everything that I've done, I have really, I have transformed, this person, or I have contributed, I've helped to make this person the way that she is because of everything that I've done up to this point. So I feel like aside from having somebody like Sayaka, sit her down and be like, man, you really need to, like take a look at what you're doing. Seeing the person that she's been trying to protect change and become something, that's darker or something, I think would really also make for a really big wake-up call in Homura's case. And at the same time, I also think this would give Homura a chance to essentially, I guess you can kind of say, kind of become, I guess, a good guy again, in the sense that I could see her maybe doing something very noble or very self-sacrificing as a way of saying, okay, I have fucked up to this point, but I'm gonna do something to, make this right because of everything that I've done. So I feel like if Madoka were to change and if Homura had played a role in that, this would give Homura the ability to kind of redeem herself in like a really big way, because you have Little Miss Madoka, who has suddenly become this really evil, this really big threat, and who's now bigger than Homura, and this would be a great opportunity for Homura to kind of, fix things. And I also think it would be interesting if and again, I'm not exactly sure how this could come about, but I like the idea of Homer potentially sacrificing herself for the sake of making things right. I think this would work because if Homer continues to have the mindset that she wants to save Madoka no matter what happens, we're never going to get anywhere. Something has to change where she has to come to terms with the reality of what's going on. Otherwise, the series really will continue, and we're just going to have the same story. Okay, this girl is not happy with the fact that Madoka has made this decision, blah blah blah. But if a situation can occur where she potentially sacrifices herself as a way of making things right, this would eliminate the issue of Homura doing anything to change like the balance of things, assuming that her sacrifice is able to essentially make things the way that they were, or essentially. So, because essentially could, and at the same time, if you get Homer out of the picture, then that probably, it's funny because this whole thing was supposed to be about a way to extend the series. But as I'm thinking about it, if they wanted to end the series at this point, this probably is something else that they could do, because if Homer sacrificed herself, that would pretty much would be the end. That would be one way that they could end the series and also make Homer look really good. And at the same time, it would also be a way to, I guess not necessarily, because I know that, Geno Urobuchi is famous for writing stories where he's killing off characters. This could potentially be a way for him to sort of continue that reputation, but at the same time, it's a way that fans can kind of walk away really kind of like feeling like a lot of emotion. Because Homer is a character that is, like the most popular in the series. And if this were to happen, I think a lot of people, again, this would help to redeem her, but at the same time, it would really leave people. It would really, I feel like it would really captivate people and really touch them like really emotionally if they do it like the right way. So I think that would be a really good way for Homer's character to kind of, have a really good showing and for her to end. Now, as far as the other characters are concerned,
I like what you were saying then and everything, but I couldn't help it going in my head. That's Act 3 though. Well, Act 4, because animation has anime goes in 4 act structure. We have 3 act structures. The way it's writing thing. Because what you got there is the ending, the perfect ending between Madoka and Homer, as you were saying.
essentially, yeah, yeah. I was gonna try to move into the other characters, yeah, but essentially for those characters, yeah, that's kind of how.
Myself, because I had notes on that as well.
Okay,
Sorry.
okay. Well, we'll stop. Okay, we'll stop there. What do you think about what I've presented so far with those characters?
It's great because that's exactly what I think as well. And the only reason I was swooping in because you've been at it for about 10 minutes and I kind of
Oh,
wanted the word
sorry, I kind of got caught up in that. Yeah.
So yeah, because yeah, I agree totally. I think the ending that Madoka and Homer need is it's some sort of closure, and
Yes.
this is where I think the other characters have a chance to shine. Because the issue is you have 2 gods, and everyone else is just sort of there for the ride.
Which is kind of how the series has positioned a lot of these characters. Like I sometimes think the only reason Sayaka and Nagisa are in these positions is to try to maybe balance things out a little bit, because essentially you now essentially have 2 characters who are larger than life, and everybody else is kind of like not where they are. Which
Yeah,
I was gonna explain, but I'll explain more because I actually do have ideas for how the other characters need to be
because
played.
I wanted to put my phones though. Can I please? Sorry.
Yes.
Because what I claim with the other 4 characters, you got
Mhm.
other 4. So you got Nagisa, Mami, Kyoku, and Sayaka. I think in the 2 obvious pairings that you've got, Sayaka and Kyoku and Mami and Nagisa, I think the role that they could easily serve is a role of sort of realization of their place in the universe, essentially. Because
Okay.
what you've got constant resetting and things like that. But like Sayaka has a sense of awareness that this isn't the first time that things have been reset.
Right.
Yubei, obviously aware of this fact because he had to go through the goddamn torture that Homer went through. So what I'd really like is that sort of amongst them, they create a group of understanding that this isn't the first time that the universe has been reset. And, like, there was sort of, it sounds really every high school anime ever, but there was sort of, like, the way that they can observe the way that Homura and Madoka interact. The realization of what Homura's done, like, they pieced together enough to realize exactly what Homura has been planning from the beginning. That she's basically, they've come to the realization that what Homura has always tried to do is, yes, she's trying to protect Madoka, of course she's trying to do a nice thing, but the way she's done it is wrong.
Yes.
She's far too controlling, and so obviously they then get through to Madoka and convince her to do something about this. Confront Homura, because the only person that Homura is ever going to listen to is Madoka.
Be her. Right.
Because they're just a background character. They're just someone that she's reached.
That's part of the reason why I was thinking that if Madoka were to descend into like an evil, like, because I feel like if Homer were to see this happen, it would. That's another way where she could have a realization. Because if she sees the person she was trying to help, but then she thinks about how what's happened leading up to this point, and that her meddling has really, made something really terrible happen, and probably if that. If that were to happen, then I think what you're saying before about how maybe somehow the other girls, like, this is just me kind of connecting with what you're saying to what I'm saying. Like, maybe the other girls could somehow can help Madoka to revert back to how she was, and maybe that's when she, confronts Homer, and then that's when maybe the heart-to-heart thing could happen, essentially.
I had a more optimistic idea for the ending, actually, than what you had.
Okay. That's cool. Okay.
Full, let's take down Homura sort of way with it and be evil. I think, because I mentioned this to you before about the failing that Homura hasn't realized in all her jumps in the original series. I mentioned this before about how the Madoka she's trying to save, basically, as you said, her wish was to protect Madoka. That was the one thing she was going to do.
Yeah, you mentioned before how in the first timeline there was more of a possibility that maybe that Madoka might have liked Homer. Right.
Like, there's a hint at the end of the series where Madoka goes, "Oh, I've seen all the effort you put in. That's so sweet of you and everything." But she doesn't say it in a "come here, have your reward from me" sort of way. She says it in a "I respect what you've done. Because of what you've done, I've become God. That's really good of you" sort of way. So what I'd like is the ending essentially being Madoka, coming back, because if she becomes God again, she'll remember everything again, including everything that Homura did for her originally. And I kind of like her, along with everyone else, basically, all the less important characters who are, basically coming up to Homura and going, "You need to stop. You need to..." Because we've all accepted our place in the universe by this point. We've accepted what we're capable of, and you need to accept that you are done. Can't control everything. And the place you started your journey is so long ago, and even you can't save the thing you were originally trying to save, basically. And I kind of like this idea. It's very optimistic, but it's between Madoka and Homura. They agree to sort of leave everyone alone. Because they could just ascend, as it were. And by doing that, they could sort of just... They could sort of very much be a god and Satan, but, a more cheerful version of them. That just do what they want. Maybe they can make an agreement with Cube for a new system for magical girls that isn't quite so evil, basically.
Right.
Or something.
Right. Yeah, because you figure however the series ends up, they have to deal with him in some way.
Yeah, because what they've done with him now is they've just ruined him. They've just made him really regret his decision to make Magical Girl the thing. So yeah, this is like the absolute perfect everyone has happy times ending, where Homer goes her ways, Madoka convinces her to, just leave everyone alone for God's sake. The universe has been rewritten enough, because if we don't do this, what we'll get is, I don't know, they choose Mami to be the next person to become God. In the concept trailer, it has that shot. Believe it, that's how the trailer is. I haven't watched it for a while. But it has that shot of Mami standing at the edge of a big, I can't even, it's a weird tower structure that's like jutting out of the earth, and she's standing out at the edge of it, and she's glowing, and she's gold.
And what's really interesting is that because I had a friend, I wish I still had it with me, but a friend of mine once sent me a picture and he had a screenshot of how Madoka looked after she made her wish. Like, you know how she's standing cross-legged after she makes her thing, her wish in the third timeline in the final episode. If you take that shot and you put the image of mommy as she's standing, but they have the exact same pose as they're standing in that kind of way. So it kind of, I feel like that kind of like possibly hints more that that could be something that happens. What were you gonna say before I said
I
that?
mean, the only point I was going to make this is me being so. This is a very jokey way that I was going to suggest wrapping this up. Essentially, was because
Okay.
was potentially that because of the way that they're hinting with like that Mammy might do something great in the content trailer, or whatever. Are we just going to get 6 movies? Well, not 6 movies, but like we'll get another 3 movies, so that every single girl can essentially ascend to godhood.
I
I
mean,
mean, we've
it's
got two out of
it's
6. We may as well do the other 4, you know.
I mean, it's interesting because depending on how they go about, I think that there is potential, like because another thing that, and truth be told, I don't necessarily believe that this is going to happen, but if they wanted to add more to the series, you know that whole idea that people have of Hitomi
Some
turning
magical girl as well and things. I agree. All like
I personally don't care if it happens or not, but if they wanted to extend the series more and maybe add just more layers to it and kind of keep things fresh, they could because truth be told, if they're going to continue the series based on what was shown in the trailer, I don't think that movie is going to involve Hitomi very much at all. I feel like that there's too much going on with the other characters. I don't feel like there is any way that he told me, like at least not from the sense of becoming a magical girl. I think that when you have all these other characters, and not to mention the fact that I'm sure they also show some potential other magical girls that might actually come in. So I don't think he told me, but if they were trying to extend this movie continuously, that's one thing that they could put in like in the future. Like for example, maybe in this next movie, he told me is going to discover the existence of magical girls. It could happen, and maybe if they decide to go beyond it, in the next movie is when she's going to actually become one after discovering what they are and all that other stuff. And another thing, the final thing I'll say is that if they wanted to continue the series, another character that they could dig deeper into, aside from Madoka, from my perspective, is Cube, because we have such a lack of information about his race in terms of where they came from, why they've decided to take on this task of saving the universe. We have very limited information on him overall. So if they wanted to, they could maybe expand more on him, like to just kind of like unravel some mystery or something. They could use that as a way. Like I think one person, I once read a theory where somebody came up with the idea that maybe Cube is some type of messenger to a being, to a higher being that's beyond him or something like that. That's why Cube is not particularly powerful. He just essentially has the ability to essentially not die because there's
has
like
the ability
duplicates of
to
him.
laws of
So
physics and give girls exactly what they want, no matter how impossible.
right, yeah, because they never explain how he has that ability either. So I feel like there's a lot of mystery that they could. I mean, I'm not saying that they will, because they may just leave it as it is. Like maybe they didn't really think that they needed to have any substance with that. But if they wanted to go beyond where they currently are, that is another method that they could use to continue it. They could dig deeper into him.
Yeah,
So
I mean, I'd
yeah.
make the claim that Kibe, like, I would personally come up with my own theories and things like that of what he could do. I personally think he works by not having focus because the whole point of the
Okay.
original Madoka Magica was to be a deconstruction of magical girl genre. A lot of people mention this when they review it and whatever. And Kibe's role in all this is obviously the mysterious animal that grants the girls their powers.
Okay. I guess yeah, that's one way of looking at it. Yeah, I don't disagree
But
with
the
that.
point I'm making is by not giving like Cube any explanation, whatever, it's sort of a jab at a lot of other shows by going, you didn't actually explain how any of this works in the first place. It's just magic somehow, you know.
Right.
And like
At the very least, do you agree that if they were trying to find a reason to extend the series beyond what it was, do you think that he could be used as a potential scapegoat for going beyond like a couple of movies or something like that if they wanted
Totally.
to?
I mean, I'm going to plug myself here. It's an idea I've played around myself about if I like because I'm writing stuff. I'd love to delve into Cube as a character, be sort of a very jaded Cube, sort of post all of the events in this and all that, and just because they tiny hint on this at the end of Rebellion, where the incubators go, "This is a mistake. We shouldn't do this. We shouldn't try and mess with girls and give them magical powers."
Right.
But you don't get anything past that because Homura goes, "No, screw you. You've got to
You've
do
got
this for the
mail."
rest of your lives." Big magical girls, and it's just like, oh, never mind then. Yeah, I do think Kubo deserves a bit more focus, even if it is just from a sort of personality perspective of realizing that they didn't plan everything through in their magical girl get rich quick scheme they had going.